In the darkness of the Moscow metro, where light rarely penetrates and bullets have replaced money, a force was born out of dust and chaos. A faction that rules not with weapons, but with trade. Hanza, a metropolitan republic on rails, the beating heart of the underground economy. In today's video, we delve into the story of the most powerful trade alliance in the metro. How did it come about? Why is it so influential? And what is the price of peace when everything can be bought? Welcome to the world of the Hanseatic League, where even civilization has a price tag. The Hanseatic League, or Hanseatic League, is one of the key and most influential factions in the post-apocalyptic Moscow metro. Unlike many other groups that prevail in the dark tunnels, the Hanseatic League represents a kind of metropolitan commercial republic. Economically strong, well-organized, and relatively modern, the Hanseatic League was formed on the initiative of the wealthier stations on the Koltsevaya line, which is the Moscow Metro's circular line. After the first clans realized that controlling the trade routes around the center brought enormous wealth, their numbers soon grew so that virtually all stations on this line joined the Confederation. The oldest founding stations of the Hanseatic League included Kievskaya, Prospect Mira, Kurskaya, and Taganskaya. Later, Paveletskaya, Dobryninskaya, and others joined. The Hanseatic League thus practically controlled the entire ring line, which gave it at least 12 strategic points around the heart of the metropolitan network. It is this location, a circular route surrounding the center of Moscow, that gives the Hanseatic League unlimited access to almost all major trade routes. Anyone who wants to transport goods from one end of the metro to the other usually has to pass through Hanseatic territory or at least conclude temporary trade agreements with them. The Hanseatic League is officially governed by a trade council in which representatives of individual stations are represented. Although they present themselves as a relatively democratic confederation, in practice, those who have the largest volume of goods and ammunition, i.e., oligarchs rather than truly equal voters, have the most influence. Each station in the Hanseatic League has its own commander, or managing merchant, who is responsible for protecting the given section, maintaining order, and collecting and distributing taxes, mostly ammunition. These stations compete with each other, but at the same time they are linked by common economic interests. The collapse of one of them would threaten the entire circuit. Unlike other factions in the metro, where ammunition, or anything that can be used in weapons, is the common currency, the Hanseatic League produces its own bullets and has become the de facto monopoly supplier of ammunition for many stations. Although ammunition is used as currency, its relative stability and steady flow of arms make the Hanseatic League a non-threatening but extremely powerful economic machine. In addition to producing ammunition, Hanza collects and sells other necessities: food, medicine, and building materials. Its largest stations, such as Market Station, Taganskaya, and Prospect Mira, have extensive market areas where goods are exchanged, from raw materials and finished products to weapons and service workshops. The Hanseatic League has a professional and well-armed militia whose members have access to more modern weapons, various types of Kalashnikovs, flamethrowers, and, to a certain extent, vehicles. Their main task is to guard trade routes, control access to their stations, and suppress any attempts at looting or independent conspiracies. Unlike the Empire or the Red Line, which often rely on ideology, the Hanseatic League prefers pragmatism and discipline. If necessary, for example, in the event of a threat from the Empire or a large-scale mutant attack, Hanseatic commanders are able to quickly mobilize reserve units. In fact, after the battle for D6, some of the Hanseatic League's elite units joined the Spartan Rangers to help strengthen the Metropolitan Council's defensive capabilities and unite the fight against common enemies. Hanza does not have its own hydroelectric power plants, but its largest energy supplier is the Sevastopolskaya HPP faction, which still operates in the remains of a hydroelectric power plant near the Sevastopolskaya station. This is where Hanza regularly purchases electricity. Thanks to a stable power supply, its stations are usually well lit, dry, and clean, which contrasts sharply with the dark tunnels of some smaller factions. Hanza can afford better maintenance workers and technicians, which also allows for better functioning of store counters, radios within its own circuit, and security systems at the entrances to each station. Thanks to this energy advantage, Hanza traders and militia have a head start, as they do not need to improvise or deal with intersections with malfunctioning power lines. The relationship between the Hanseatic League and the Empire is tense. Both factions declare their neutrality, but in practice they avoid open confrontation, mainly because of the economic losses that would be caused by the destruction of trade routes. Ideologically, the Hanseatic League is a capitalist entity, while the Empire, relying on archaic fascist motifs, wants to restore a kind of iron fist and tyrannize other stations. However, the Hanseatic League avoids open conflict with the Empire as long as the Empire does not directly threaten their bases. For example, if the Reich launches a large-scale attack, the Hanseatic League prefers to hire mercenaries or ask the Invisible Watchers, a secret elite in the Metro universe, former members of the government and intelligence services who secretly control events in the Moscow Metro and isolate it from the outside world. For additional ammunition supplies instead of direct military escalation, the communists of the Red Line and the capitalist Hanseatic League are at completely opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. Nevertheless, short-term agreements are concluded from time to time. The Hanseatic League needs cheap labor, and the Red Line needs ammunition. However, these deals are always fragile. If an important issue of dispute arises between them, such as the regulation of ammunition prices, the agreements are canceled and mutual tensions erupt into minor skirmishes or even shootouts at the defensive barriers at the entrances. The relationship with Polis can be described as relatively friendly. Polis is considered the intellectual and political center of the Metropolitan Council, and therefore the Hanseatic League maintains proper diplomatic relations with it. Occasionally, the Hanseatic League sends its representatives to negotiations with Polis political leaders, with a frequent topic of discussion being ways to effectively regulate the flow of supplies, ammunition, food, and medical supplies. After the battle for D6 in Metro Last Light, several of the Hanseatic League's elite soldiers officially became members of the Spartan Rangers, seeking to help unify the defense forces of the Metropolitan Council. The Hanseatic League stations are among the cleanest and best maintained in the entire metro. Some of them, such as Prospect Mira and Kurskaya, have small libraries where children and young people learn the basics of history, literature, and even the functioning of metropolitan institutions. The goal is to raise a new generation of merchants, technicians, and administrators. Hanza merchants make sure that their stations evoke a sense of order and relative civilization. On the tables, you can buy not only ammunition, but also non-perishable food. Nuts, dried meat, canned goods, and medicines. Compared to the dark hideouts of mutants and anarchist groups in other parts of the metro, the inhabitants of Hanza enjoy a significantly higher standard of living, which naturally brings them loyal customers and a stable workforce. Hanza is considered the most powerful economic faction in the Moscow metro in canonical lore. Thanks to its own ammunition production, key position on the ring line, and support from the Invisible Watchers, it maintains stable power, which allows it to keep relative peace in the area of trade routes. At the same time, however, thanks to its pragmatic pragmatism, it is able to respond flexibly to threats, from mutants to ideological conflicts to the hidden past of a secret organization that monitors the survival of humanity beneath the surface of Moscow. If you enjoyed the video and found it interesting, I would appreciate it if you left a like, subscribed, and of course commented with praise, criticism, or your opinion on this metro station. Good luck in the wasteland. See you next time at the next station.